2019 is coming to a close, and it's time for me to look back at all the reviews I did and find out which were the top 10 worst games that I reviewed this year. I mostly reviewed Nintendo Switch games, but this year I did do a PC game and technically a mobile game review, as well as a mail order service. I decided not to include any of my mail order series in this, as it really wasn't a game in the way we're discussing it now. But if I had to pick, I think I'd pick the Sleuth Kings. Even though Dispatch did send me the wrong information, Sleuth Kings felt cheaper for a higher price. I went back and rethought about all the games that I reviewed this year, and I decided to put it in order of how much I enjoyed it. If you don't see a game on here you might expect, maybe I didn't review it. Like always, this is a list of games that I didn't like. So with that said, number 10, Thief Simulator. I know this one might surprise some of you, as I really enjoyed this game. However, when a game crashes on you 12 times, there is a serious problem. The only reason this is so high on the list is because other than that, this game is really enjoyable. But if you can't play it due to the fact it crashes all the time, it kind of cancels out all the fun. Now let's talk about the worst part of this game, the way you interact with the world. It was just terrible. Let's start with the camera when it's breaking down items. It's really bad that in the jewelry minigame, you have to maneuver around using a broken camera to get to the jewels. It was bad, but not unplayable. However, trying to break down a car is just ridiculously bad. The camera will fight you and will make you do some of the most tedious things to make you break down a car. It's like someone made this as a VR game and then reworked it for the console without fixing it. Number 9. Instant Sports. This one feels like a lazy cash-in for a game. There really is only one full game in here, and that is bowling. Even tennis has too many drawbacks to make it fun to play. Overall, it feels like a very small minigame collection. You can't move the character. The game does that for you. On some of the higher difficulty levels, some of the rallies might go on for an absurd amount of time. I had one go on for over 3 minutes, just hitting the ball back and forth, and the me-like character on the screen would look like it was getting tired. It was a nice little thing they added there, but I didn't notice any differences on the way they hit the ball. One of the oddest things that you'll start noticing is the background characters. They often make stadiums where people can watch you play, but they hardly filled them at all. It's like the characters in this game knows that this thing is kind of terrible and doesn't really want to go to these events either. Number 8, Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition. Have you ever wanted to play Final Fantasy 15 without those pesky fun parts in it? Well, this might be perfect for you. But for the rest of the world, this is an embarrassment. The gameplay is repetitive, boring, and overall it takes everything enjoyable about the real game and leaves the rest for you to play. All the story beats are here, but they're all dumbed down. Like for example, the driving sections, which took a great deal of time in the original game. Now they're just slightly interactive cutscenes. You can move your car back and forth and that's it. Or you could do nothing and just let the car drive itself. On the very rare occasion where a car would be driving on the opposite side, if you tried to ram into it, it would just turn out of the way every time. Even if it meant phasing through a railing. If it wasn't for the character moments in the car, I would wonder why they're even bothering to adding this into the game. The characters look incredibly creepy. They have dead eyes and never move their mouths. Who thought it was a good idea to have characters with black holes for eyes? They look like they have no soul and they're ready to absorb you into their consciousness. Number 7. Fun Animal Park. Yeah, I know this is a kid's game and I should be more forgiving, but the graphics look like a Wii game, the motion controls were not great, and overall the gameplay was dull. I can't even imagine a young child enjoying this. There is a surprising amount of voice acting between the two characters. They will jabber on if you're just sitting around, not playing the game, and it mostly consists of the bunny beating to the lion.
The only trouble you ever have is figuring out when your next nap will be.
That's right. I do like my siestas.
Well, sleep is good for children. So carefree and full of joy you are. Telltale signs of one with too much time on their hands.
Those first two sound like compliments. Keep them coming.
Number 6. Quest for the Golden Duck. This is a budget game that I picked up for a few cents. Graphically it looks awful and the gameplay is boring. It's kind of a Pac-Man type game, and overall I'm not sure the small price I paid for it was worth it. And it's for sure not worth it for the full price of $9.99. Like I mentioned, you can play this with 3 other players. And when I asked my kids if they wanted to play this with me, they just laughed at me and said no. I couldn't blame them. It really wasn't very fun. But that's really because this game should be played in multiplayer. It kind of feels like the kind of game that you get more excitement from doing it that way. Number 5. Bubsy, Paws on Fire. Now playing this, if you had told me this was a random generated platformer, I think I would have believed you because the level design was so basic and repetitive, I can't imagine someone spent more than 10 minutes making each level. Everything was just so boring and oddly too zoomed out. Was it really necessary to have the camera out so far? I could barely see the character, and playing in handheld was even worse. Now you play as 3 different characters. Well, 4, but the last one is reserved for a bonus stage. Bubsy can float and attack enemies, Virgil could do double jumps and duck slide, and my favorite one named Wooly just sits in a spaceship and just flies around, like a side-scrolling shooter. I say she's my favorite because you actually have the freedom to fly around the map. It was easily the most fun I had with this game. The other 2 just had you jump around and avoid enemies and obstacles until you get to the finish. It was so tedious. Number 4! Nickelodeon Kart Racer. You would think a game that could pull from a large amount of Nickelodeon shows would be interesting. However, the creators decided to only pick from 4 shows and use 4 of the 12 character slots for each of the Ninja Turtles. The track designs were bad, and overall it's just a boring racing game. The lack of real diversity in the roster was a real big problem for this game. It has the Ninja Turtles, and a few characters from SpongeBob and Rugrats, and a couple from Hey Arnold. Where's Danny Phantom, or Jimmy Neutron, or Fairly Odd Parents? Heck, I would have taken Blue from Blue's Clues. It's just the most basic roster you can imagine. And if you do win first place in one of these cups, what do you get for your trouble? You get slimed. And for some reason, the characters don't seem to mind. I get that it's a Nickelodeon staple, it just doesn't make sense in this game. Or a coveted prize like, ooh, I'm first place, that means I get covered in goo. Number 3. Ugly Dolls, an Imperfect Adventure. This is a series based on a bunch of dolls. The world is procedurally generated, and it shows. The town that you explore makes no logical sense. The buildings all look the same, and the graphics were just terrible. It's just annoying on how little effort was made to make you a world that you'd want to explore. Then when you finish all the things you need to do, you go back to your home base, and you go back out into the world again, and it's completely changed. The maps are all blanked out again, and you basically have to figure it out once again. What, did the world change in the 2 seconds I was gone? Believe it or not, while I was researching this game to figure out what Ugly Dolls were, I found out the answer. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. It's a procedurally generated world. This wasn't really that easy to find. Not even Nintendo's description had this. I found it on a random website. It was like all the puzzle pieces finally fit. That's why the world is so shitty. It's literally changing the world every time you go into it. And that sucks. Number 2. Woodle Tree Adventures. Making a 3D platformer is hard. There's no more proof of that than with this game. It made so many mistakes, from the enemies' non-existent death animations, not labeling the worlds that you explore so you have to remember everything, and the bad level layouts make it so there's really not anything enjoyable to play in this at all. Every level is just so dull to explore or way too tedious. And the problem is you're going to need to look in every nook and cranny of these worlds in order to find the 3 water drops in the level so you can leave. If you don't find them all, you can't finish the level. It's all or nothing. There is a hub world where you get upgrades to your tree powers. You collect fruits on your journey, and the more you get, the more you unlock. The game never tells you what they are or what they do, and it was really frustrating. Ooh, look, now I'm shooting out a different color. But one of the most frustrating things about this hub world was picking the levels you had to explore. All they show you is balls that represent the worlds. It feels like they just placed them randomly since there's no flow to the level selection, or even labeling. You had better remember which random ball you went into before, because the game will not tell you. Number 1! America Ninja Warrior Challenge. Of course it was this game. This title did everything it could to make me hate it. I don't think I could find one good thing about it. It's just a complete failure. Everything you could possibly think of was done poorly, and that's why it was the worst game that I reviewed this year. Once you get to the qualifier, you run the course. If you fall in the water 3 times, you lose and the season is over. Then you start another season with new training days and different challenges. I would love to know what happens after the first qualifiers, but like I mentioned before, I just couldn't get past any of them. They give you a stamina bar, which will lower quite quickly. You can increase it during the runs by showing off for the 12 people watching, or as the game incorrectly calls it, a crowd. Now, in order for you to have a chance in finishing these events, you're going to need to upgrade your character. You might think you do this by doing practices, but no, you have to pay money to do this. You have to wonder, what's costing money that could possibly change the stats of your character? I don't know what could. Steroids! I wonder what it could be. Well, that's it. Those were my top 10 worst games that I reviewed this year. Up next to finish the year, I'm going to look back at the top 10 best games that I reviewed. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I hope everyone has a happy holidays.